another of the best parts of swim run is going to really interesting places that you might not have thought of. Seeing an archipelago and being like, I'm just gonna go from one end of it to the other. That sounds kind of fun. So destination swim run is again another great way to express your fitness, another great way to not just go on vacation and do something that doesn't require you traveling with a bike or like a whole bunch of gear. If you've been following us for a while, you've seen that we sometimes post what our pack list looks like, and it's pretty small, pretty compact.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 263 of the show. Now, let me ask you some questions. You want to go ballistic this year with Swimrun?
Yes.
You want to start stacking points? You want to start stacking? You want to start stacking mad points for a potential world championship bid? Chipper's nodding his head.
Yes,
Folks that are not watching on YouTube. Do you want to race an epic destination swim run?
Of course.
Also, yes. And then, do you want to use your fitness to try something new and, dare I say, awesome for the first time this year? Well, since those answers are all yes, I'm sure they're all yes. Welcome to the ultimate guide for lining up the ultimate swim run season in what is the year of swim run. So this episode is for you, for anyone who's thinking about racing or already has some plans. One of the best things about swim run is really the variety of experiences that are out there to be had. Given that no two races are exactly the same, planning out your season and your training is a puzzle that swim runners need to solve to accomplish their goals. In this episode, we take a deep dive into these scenarios we just mentioned to try to help you solve the puzzle and make sure you just have an awesome time.
Absolutely. And the year of swim run, we keep saying it, it's here 2025. If we manifest it, it will be here. It will happen. And it's kicking off in April on Catalina Island. So excited about that one. But yeah, I think the best way where this is an episode that can be for the folks that are just dipping their toe in or their pull buoy and paddles in to the water there into swim run, from all the way to the folks that, hey, I want to give it a shot and try to qualify for the world championship, and then kind of somewhere in the middle, like, hey, I just like going out there and having a cool adventure in a unique location and, be fit and do fun things with a partner or solo. So I think we'll start on the beginner side of it, or in the reverse order there. So, hey, I'm fit. I do trail running. I'm maybe a triathlete. I do open water swimming. I go on hikes. I just like being outdoors and being fit. And I want to try something new. And I heard that 2025 is the year of swim run. So what a great time. I heard somewhere. So what a great time to do something new and try a swim run. With the Otelo series coming to the United States, there's 3 distances. So they really have something for everyone, something around an 8K total race distance. So you might get 3 or 4 run legs, 3 or 4 swim legs, then maybe a 15, 20 kilometer distance, and then all the way up to the 40 kilometer distance for the folks who are looking for something a little bit more challenging and a longer adventure there. But obviously, Chris and I are fully drunk on the Kool-Aid. We're not going to convince you that, obviously swim run is the sport to try out, but we wanted to help you along the way. Like, if this is you're diving into swim run, maybe what would be some considerations to have, and hopefully you have a race on the books. I think for your first one, Chris, I know this is something that we constantly talk about. What a great time if you have a local swim run in your area. Go support those local races. And
low barrier to entry. They're happening all over the world, certainly in the United States. And yeah, I mean, I think, when we talk about swimmer being awesome, the only real way, I mean, you can read books about it, you can listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, but the only real way to really find the magic is to actually do one. So in that vein, if you're just planning to just dip your toe into swim run, some of the considerations are obviously gear, making sure that you have the right equipment and make sure you have a good experience. That would be at the minimum having a suit, but not necessarily, depending on where you are. But certainly you want to get comfortable swimming with shoes on and running with wet feet and all that stuff. So having some idea what you want to do with gear. The other is training, right? So if you're just dipping your toe in, just make sure you're swimming, make sure you can run at least the longest leg of whatever swim run you signed up for. So if like
Yep.
maybe it's a swim run that has like 10 miles of running, but the longest leg is 3 miles, you don't need to be able to run 10 miles in one go. If you can run 3 miles a couple times, you'll probably be fine because you actually get a lot of recovery from swimming. And then I think just as important as making sure you're kind of fit and ready for the experience is kind of setting up good, realistic, and good goals for that first race. So going there with a sort of an open mindset, try to have fun with it. It's a funky thing. It's a very strange sport, which we love, but setting a proper goal, not being like, oh, I just did Kona and I'm gonna go do this thing and crush. That might not be the best attitude going into your first race. Just going into it, it's like, hey, I'm just gonna be able to express my fitness, have a bunch of fun, and kind of check it out. That's probably gonna serve you really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we say, and I think Chris, we obviously can share. We've done 20 swim runs together at this point. Our primary goal, everyone, is pretty much let's just have fun with it. So that can apply to your very first swim run. That can apply to your 20th and beyond swim run of just making sure you're out there to have fun, go out, run a little bit, swim a little bit, be out in nature and just enjoy it there. So those are the folks that you're looking to try something new. And mind you, swim run, also running and swimming, those two exercises are great just for building and carrying your fitness forward. So if you are maybe a trail runner, but you enjoy swimming, your swim run is going to help keep your fitness and build your fitness, and especially those triathletes as well. You're already doing 2/3 of a triathlon as a swim run, so you're there already. So very easy for you to
Sure.
kind of transition
Yeah.
into doing into doing some swim runs.
Yeah,
Now,
plus it's a good break. Like if you're trying to do a couple Ironmans a year and you have like a break in the middle and you just want to like have fun without sort of the pressure of feeling like you need to perform or something, swimrun's great. I mean, you get to use your fitness in this new way. And we know a lot of recovering triathletes that are now swim runners because it's such a kind of a fun yeah, it's such a fun
present,
way
present.
to experience the sport. So if you want to dip your toe in, that's our best advice. Open mind, have fun, get enough gear to make sure that that you can enjoy the experience and not just be choking yourself with some surfing wetsuit or anything like that. Our next category, and again, we kind of, we're making these categories up just to give us like a framework to talk about this stuff. But our next category is, what if you want to just go, epic races and epic places? Do you want to do a destination swim run? And I think certainly in Chippers and I swim run, we're grizzled old veterans at this point. Like one of the yet another of the best parts of swim run is going to really interesting places that you might not have thought of. Seeing an archipelago and being like, I'm just gonna go from one end of it to the other. That sounds kind of fun. So destination swim run is again another great way to express your fitness, another great way to not just go on vacation and do something that doesn't require you traveling with a bike or like a whole bunch of gear. If you've been following us for a while, you've seen that we sometimes post what our pack list looks like, and it's pretty small, pretty compact. Now, if you want to get inspired for a place where you might want to go vacation and do a swim run, Chipper, where should they go?
Obviously, they should head out to lowtideboys.com to check out Dave's list, which is an all-encompassing global documented, the only global documented swim run catalog of races across the planet Earth here in 2025. Lots of details in there about distances, what country, what city, maybe some travel tips in there as well. But if you're looking for a really interesting place, I think Swimrun and checking that out, Swimrun is certainly the vehicle to get you there. And we've talked to many teams, Swimrun partners, life partners, and hey, it's a great way to get a vacation in there, have a little bit of fitness, get a vacation in there, do the race on the end or the beginning of your place, and bring your swim run partner, bring your life partner, bring the family. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. We've done a couple of these ourselves, but yeah, certainly head on over to Dave's list and really get inspired with all the cool content there. We've also talked to many race directors of many awesome races around that is on our bucket list, which is it's got to be at least a 50-gallon drum by now. The Low Tide Boys race bucket list.
It's an oil
But
barrel.
yeah, it's an oil barrel. But some really cool ones that we wanted to mention as well. And if these sound interesting to you at all, you can go back in the 260 something episodes of the Low Tide Boys and check out the conversations that we've had, either with the race director or kind of like a race debrief with people that have done these swim runs. But we had the Bali Hope swim run in Bali, which is a warm weather tropical.
What else do you need to say?
I mean, yeah, really though. So that's a really cool one. We down in South Africa, you have the Torpedo swim run in Cape Town, South Africa. And so if you want to go see the big 5 jungle animals and do a swim run, South Africa is the continent to make it happen.
Yeah. And it's even set up for that. Like, they know people are coming from a long way. So they even have like a vacation package that's like, show up, do a swim run, get some lodging, go on safari,
go see a giraffe.
So, I mean, come on.
And if big 5 land animals aren't your thing, how about really hairy cows? Over in Engadin in Switzerland, there's Otelo Engadin, which is like an alpine style Tala race. Happens to also be the first swim run outside of Sweden. So there's a cool historical element to that as well. And if you like elevation up, gaining elevation on running and alpine lake swims, then Engadin is likely going to be a great place for you to have a vacation and do a swim run plus Swiss chocolates. I mean, can you really go wrong there? And I think this list wouldn't be complete without maybe the most epic swim run out there of Rockman in Norway, swimming between fjords. You might even see Rockman himself on the mountain up on Pulpit Rock. Just a really epic, from what we have been told many times from Thor, the race director, and Marcus Barton, co-race director there, even talking with folks that have done the race. It's just really, you're pinching yourself, it sounds like, as this race is happening, just because of the beauty and nature that surrounds you. But not for the faint of heart. Rockman is a very epic of epic proportions.
Yes, certainly. So, and that's not the end of the list, right? You can, again, go to Dave's list. There's races in Italy, all over Europe, all over Asia, Australia,
France,
wherever you are, South America. You're going to Uruguay for some reason, just go have it Uruguay. Anyway, geography jokes. Sorry, everybody. So our next category is, what if you want to stack points for potential World Championship bid in Sweden, first Monday in September? You want to go do the granddaddy of them all. Now that is a lofty goal. It's an awesome quest. We highly encourage it. It's certainly that's not the only swim run journey you can go on. But if you're intrigued by that, obviously there are some technical things you need to do to get there, which is essentially you need to stack points. And so obviously if you're planning the ultimate swim run season, you're going to want to make sure you're indexing on either Attila branded races or their merit races, which, if you're in the United States, there aren't any merit races. You have to do the Attila races, but there's more of those now. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to stack points. In fact, you used to have to travel to Europe at least once in order to get enough points to qualify. Now, with enough events in the US, you actually don't need to leave our hemisphere, which is lovely. However, we do recommend going to Europe because those races are really amazing.
They are.
So if you're really trying to stack points, you want to be really smart around, okay, well, what races you're going to do, how many points you think you need, depending on what category you're in. For example, if you're in the women's category, you probably need fewer points because there's fewer people that tend to want to qualify for the race in the women's. More in mix, and men's is the biggest category. So if you're a men's team, you probably want to have to try to race maybe 3 to 4 events in the year just to make sure you have enough points so that you can qualify. Now, that also means training right and having a training plan is going to be really important, because if you're going to have to race a lot, you want to make sure that you're doing it right, not wasting opportunities by being, not prepared, and then kind of like not being able to get as many points as you think that you're going to need because you're undertrained or overcooked
or injured,
or something in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the category that really demands kind of the most planning and strategy around it. I know, Chris, when we it's kind of something you need to earn the points in the 12 months before the event. So if you're looking to race the 2025 edition of Untitled the Swimrun World Championship, they're counting your points you accumulated during the 2024 season. So, when Chris and I were making our bid for it in 2023, we kind of had to be strategic and say, okay, we want to put in for this. How many races do we think we need? Now, unfortunately, there's no real like, hey, if you get 80 points, you're guaranteed to get in. It's really decided on the amount of applicants they get per category, men's, mixed, and women's, as Chris mentioned just a bit ago. But yeah, having the training component of that along with the races there. And, this is where Chris and I really feel like having some professional coaching assistance or
Professional help. Yes.
professional help is good here. It's a lot of volume, or it's more volume than what some people might be used to. So making sure that obviously they're taking into account all your races. We have found there is a bit of a time to build a kind of a little bit of a mini off season, if you will, before your big summer build for Attila. So having some guidance and some training around that, someone that can navigate that, has done this race and knows what it demands to really make sure you're showing up fit as a fiddle.
Yeah, and I think a final point to that, Chipper, is, one reason that coaching helps or just having a really good training plan helps is, as we mentioned in the beginning, all these races are different. So if you're trying to do Casco Bay, that's predominantly flat, lots of swimming, you're going to have to be able to handle that. But let's say you want to go to Orcas Island to stack some points there, better have your climbing legs, buddy, because you're going to need them. So making sure, again, each race is different. You really need to analyze and study each race to understand what you think you're going to need to have in your bag of tricks, prepared to have a good day out there. And certainly coaching can help you sort that out if you can't sort it out for yourself or you're unsure as to what your training should look like. Now our final category is, what if you want to go ballistic this year? It's the year of Swimrun. You want to do a bunch of races. You want to sort of channel Marcus Barton, the most experienced swim runner of America, who's just like, hey, what's on the calendar? I'm doing it, kind of thing. Again, Dave List is going to be your friend here because you'll be able to see all the events that are happening in North America and Europe, elsewhere. And if you're just trying to like essentially go ballistic, then a couple considerations. First one being like, you want to make sure that your fitness level is at a point where you can handle that. That's going to be a lot of swim running. So that means like, probably not for your, once you've drank the Kool-Aid, you got the gear and everything else, maybe then have your, your ballistic gear or swim running, but making sure that your sort of baseline level of fitness and experience is enough so you can handle all the different things that you're going to deal with. For Chipper and I, for a couple of years there during our 2 World Championship years, we were racing a lot to the point where we almost like stopped marking our paddles and just kind of like became a little bit more laissez-faire with it because we were racing so much that we kind of like we were just kind of iterating as we went along. Really famous swim runners like Adriel Young, he uses races because he doesn't like training. So he uses his races as like long training day. So he'll just stack a bunch of races like on his build for his A races. And he, he's a freak. He's one of the greatest swimmers in the world. So he's doing what he does. I don't know if I necessarily recommend that, but just as an example of how people can use races, if you're trying to support your local races and you just enjoy swim run so much, you want to do it with a bunch of people all the time, that'll work for you.
Is there a number that we assign once you've eclipsed, is it 5 swim runs that you're official in ballistic territory?
Yeah. So our high watermark was 8. And that seemed like a lot. So I would say 5 to 6 swim runs in a year. That seems like plenty. And I think, Chipper, you mentioned this before, but I think, one thing to consider is like, if you're going to be racing that much, you probably want to organize it around a couple training cycles. So again, when we were doing our World Championship builds, lots of training, lots of racing, we always had a little bit of a break where we could kind of like, tone it down a little bit before we ramped it back up. So it wasn't like get a super high level of fitness and just like ride that until you burn out or get injured or something, but actually having some periodization in there. So while you're kind of peaking, you're doing a couple of races and you're timing it. So you're peaking it around when you're doing a bunch of races and then taking a little bit of a break, whenever in the summer or whatever, and then coming back up for the fall season, for example. So I think thinking about it that way can be really helpful just to make sure, again, you want to go ballistic, no one wants you to do that more than us. But
Yes,
we
let us
want you
know.
to make sure, we don't want you
We
to
want to
like,
hear from your
flame
ballistic
out on
folks.
us.
Yeah, and this is a tip that we gave earlier for people doing their first swim run about your goals. Hey, if you're doing 5, 6 swim runs a year, not every swim run is going to be your A swim run. You maybe have, I would say, probably up to 2 A races. So there are going to be some of those races that maybe you are going to train through them a little bit more. I know let's use sort of Toledo the World Championship. Hey, that would probably be most people's A race if it's a World Championship. Casco Bay falls in a really nice time proximity to that race, and people, ourselves included, and a lot of folks that have done the World Championship use Casco and kind of carry some volume in. They carry a lot of work and fatigue in, sort of train through that race. Have you've been people hearing about it? So you might not be showing up to that race like, hey, I'm feeling 10 out of 10, like, fit and fresh. You might be like, okay, I got a lot of miles. I got a lot of, I'm sort of maybe at the end of my training cycle before I'm tapering here in a week or two. So again, that's where coaching can really help you. But having your goals for every one of those races, because every race can't be an A race there. And sometimes it is good just to go out there and, have it be a zone 2 day, or go race with a different partner there, or try something new. If you're going ballistic, keep it fresh, keep it
Yeah,
interesting.
I think piggybacking on that, Chipper, is sort of this idea that it's like, hey, if you're gonna have your goals and you're, hopefully you're racing with a partner or you're racing with different partners, making sure you're all aligned. Like, does one person want to go ballistic and the other person's trying to take a chill? Like, let's get that sorted out before we get into
Yeah.
like down the road of passive aggression or something like that. I think communication is going to be your friend, just as within a swim run and planning your ultimate swim run season. Communication is going to be super, super important. I think like, when we came up with the idea for this episode, it was really around like, hey, we want people to be super stoked on this. We want people to have a positive experience. I mean, one of the, like the main reasons for this show is we want people to show up at swim runs to be prepared and have a good time,
Yeah.
and have fun and discover a sport that we just think is so amazing that we've dedicated, 4 years of a podcast to like broadcasting. But a lot of that is going to be on you taking it seriously, being prepared, figuring out what scenario, what bucket are you in? Are you a ballistic person? Are you getting your, dipping your pull buoy in the water person? Like, just becoming really clear about where you are and where you want to go. That's just going to be like a primary step in order to make sure that when you do show up at a race, that you're ready for the adventure of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's other ways to approach swim run, but I think these are probably the four most, the four areas that we thought folks would be in here in mid January as the season sort of begins to unfold, for folks, and likely kind of planning out what that might look like. We'll also note specifically those folks chasing the world championship points. Otala has changed their point ranking system in previous years, so you don't actually have to do every single race as the same team. So that allows for a little bit more flexibility throughout the year as well for racing. If it's hard enough to get 2 people to get to 1 race, let alone try to get to 6 or X amount of races a year there. So
Right.
there's plenty of options
Yeah,
throughout.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we're always
Can we
love to
do it?
hear from everyone, and make sure let us know what you're thinking in terms of races. If you've been inspired to go ballistic this year, send us a note for sure. We love to hear that. Who's got the craziest swim run schedule, excluding Marcus? He doesn't count in this one, but yeah, love to see you out there at a race near you or far from you this year, as it is the year of swim run.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a wet rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swim run resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.